that warm introduction. So before I start with my session, most respected Reverend Father A.B. Vadakuntala, Director Pushpagiri Group of Institutions, Professor Sister Therese, SIC, Principal Pushpagiri College of Nursing, Organizing Secretary Mrs. Matthew Soni, Associate Professor, Professor Vinita Jacob, Student Secretary Sister Anu Mary SH, Organizing Committee members, all the delegates who have assembled over here. I thank you all for giving me an opportunity to do a small session on reflective learning and problem-based learning. So fortunately or unfortunately, today I am leading the session. Actually, it was Lada ma'am's session today. She'll be handling the topics tomorrow. So without wasting much time, I shall share my screen and we'll start with the presentation. Is my screen visible? Is my screen visible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So today's session, we are going to discuss regarding two innovative teaching learning strategies. The first will be on reflective learning and the second will be on problem-based learning. So even before I start with the content of reflective learning, there is a famous words given by the philosopher Socrates. Unexamined life isn't worth living. Behind every experience, there is room for interpretation of the meaning of that experience. So actually this quote, this is actually in nutshell what is reflective learning. That is, as Socrates has said that we have to re-examine our life. Re-examine our life means re-examine each and every experiences which happens in our life so that we will be able to get a new interpretation and thereby you will be able to live a very productive life. So the same concept is being applied in the field of nursing, especially during learning or during clinical practice. So what do you mean by reflection? Reflection is not a new word. If I'm going to say that this is something, a very new concept, I'm utterly wrong.
Ma'am, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Hello?
Ma'am, you're audible.
I'm
Ma'am,
audible?
you can hear. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am,
okay.
you're audible.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So reflection is a word which is actually very common to, we all know what is reflection and definitely we all practice what is reflection. Okay, because in our everyday life, when, especially after something is over, for example, after the session is over, especially the organizing committee, you may have a reflection of how the session went on or how many participants joined or etc. We reflect on a lot of things. So reflection is something, a very important part of our human existence, and it is a vital part in order to develop intellect, learning, and to seek truth. Okay, so it's nothing new. We all in our everyday life, we know how to do reflection. Okay, so what is actually reflection? It is a way of processing ideas. There is no simple solution. What do you mean by that? The way you reflect may be entirely different from the way I reflect. Okay, I have my own ways of putting things into place. I have my own ways of thinking, like how the day went on, how the shift went on when I had a 8-hour shift in the clinical area. Whereas my one of my friend who is working in the clinical area may feel that her reflection may be entirely different. So it is not the same. Okay, we all have our own way of processing of ideas, and that exactly processing of ideas is called as reflection. Now coming straight to the point, what is reflective learning? Reflective learning is a process of internally examining and exploring an issue of concern which is triggered by an experience, which means I should have an experience. Only when I have an experience, I will think about it. I will think about it. I will examine about it. I will explore about it. Okay, which means internally I am thinking, I am exploring only after after experiencing something. So reflective learning means the student should have experienced something, and based on that experience, we are guiding her in order to internally examine and explore about an issue of concern. And later on, you can see in the remaining part of the definition, which clarifies certain meaning in terms of self. And as a result, what should happen after reflective learning? There should be a change in the perspective. That is, there should be a change in the conceptual perspective of a student. Certain times, like I'll give you an example when we look into the process of reflective learning. So without wasting time, let us go on to what exactly are the components of reflective learning. So one thing I told you already, what is that? Experience should be there. So what am I doing with that experience? I have put a formula over there. Apply the knowledge on the experience, and now we are going to get something called as a new learning. Okay, my experience, if it is going to stay there, okay, if I'm not going to reflect over it, if I'm not going to think over it, I will not learn anything. There is no new learning. So what should I do? With my prior knowledge, whatever I have, I'm going to apply that knowledge to that experience. So I can say that knowledge plus experience, applying knowledge to an experience, ending up with a new learning is called as reflective learning. Now you have there are certain people who say that reflective learning is termed as experiential learning. I think we all can agree with that group of people, because this learning is based on experience. Okay, we should have an experience. So this is otherwise called as experiential learning. Now, sometimes we see in the, like, even when you, search for research studies based on reflective learning, sometimes you will see reflective learning. Sometimes you will see certain terms called as reflective practice. Ma'am, is both the same? Are these both the same? They're somewhat similar, okay, in the sense like reflective learning is like you stand in front of a mirror and then exactly you see what is being reflected onto the mirror, and I get the complete view of certain things. That is called as reflective learning. As it is written here, it is a process of holding the experiences up to a mirror in order to examine them. Okay, literally, it doesn't mean that you have to hold it in front of the mirror, which means that internally, when you are examining, you look into, for example, after this webinar, I may reflect over how it went on. Okay, like what questions were asked, certain things, how nice was that inaugural session, how perfectly that organizing committee has done certain things. I can keep on reflecting. So that is like, you keep it in front of a mirror and you just think over such things is called as reflective learning. What is reflective practice? Reflective practice is it makes you to understand that vision is not limited to what I see. There is much more than that. It is not only what I see in the mirror. There is much more than that. Okay, I will explain this with an example, reflective practice, later on. Okay, so reflective practices, and I understand that it is not only my way of looking at things, it is not only my friend's way of looking at things, there are another way of looking at that particular thing, and that is called as reflective practice. However, both are similar because we are thinking about, you are reflecting on to the experiences, what has happened in life. So what is the concept? Who brought this reflective learning into nursing, or who said that reflection can be taken into learning? Okay, this was taken up by a philosopher. You all are familiar. I'm sure that all postgraduate students will be familiar with this person, John Dewey. Okay, John Dewey is a very famous educational philosopher, and it was actually Dewey who said that education should not be a traditional method. Like, for example, a teacher standing and taking class and students listening. So what happens is the teacher is the most active person in the class and students are the most passive person in the class. So John Dewey was against it. And I think a greater contribution goes to Dewey for bringing out this innovative teaching learning methods. Okay, so reflective learning as well as the next one, problem-based learning. Both of them, the foundation stone was laid by John Dewey. Okay, he was opposed to this traditional way of teaching. And what Dewey believed is that learners should be given an opportunity to activate their knowledge, to construct deconstruct and then to reconstruct experience. Okay, constructing is already the experience what I have. Deconstructing is I break it down, I put it into pieces, I analyze everything. Reconstructing is after I analyze, I come out with a new knowledge, I come out with a new learning. That is called as reconstructing. So that is what Devi believed. And then there was another famous person, Carl Rogers. He is said to be the father of humanistic education. He also said that education should happen based on the relationships we form with people. Okay, it is not what you memorize and keep in your brain. That is not education. The way you enjoy, the way you interact with others, and then the way you bring up some meaning into your personality, that is actually called as education. So these were the concepts. And here in reflective learning, the more I can say, the more privilege is given for self-directed learning. Now I have put a picture here of a person who is running. Okay, he's that prosthesis is being fit into his legs, but still that's self-directed. Okay, the students are allowed to run. Okay, how far you can, how much you can. Okay, that is self-directed learning. Teacher, the role is we should give space for the student in order to help them for the self-directed learning. Doesn't mean that you do reflection, you do reflective learning, I will go away. No, I should be there as a facilitator, supporting whenever my students are in need, clarifying whether they are progressing in their academics, etc. So allowing the learner to work on their self. Okay, that is the main goal of reflective learning. So as in the felicitation times, Sister Therese said that it is not traditional. We have to move into some innovative methods. So one such innovative method is this reflective learning, where students are given the opportunity and teachers are there to support the students during this learning process. Why should I do? What are the purposes of reflective learning? Purposes of reflective learning is, by the end, students become active learners. They learn to cope up with the problems, or they learn to cope up with certain tough situations, coping strategies. They learn to express their feelings, because suppose if something, a very bad experience has happened to me when I went to clinicals, okay, like a patient shouted at me, okay, I learned to work upon that experience. I bring that experience back to my memory. And the same thing is being replayed in my mind. I know to express my feelings and then to learn from that. Okay, so that is why it's written. It helps in expression of feelings. And we learn to have a more personal, emotional practice. Okay, a little bit of emotional maturity will come when you're doing this reflective learning. Students' understanding of the whole nursing practice will increase. The most important, whether the students are learning about patients or not, we will learn about ourselves if we are doing reflection. It is not only in reflective learning or reflective education, even in real life. Okay, even in a real life, if you and me can sit and reflect on certain things, what has happened today or maybe yesterday, and then try to, bring out everything and then to learn something new from that, we become a very mature individuals. Okay, we learn to know about ourselves. We know what are our strengths. We know what are our weakness when you do reflection. Okay. And when you are aware about yourself, you can help others. That is the next point. You can help others in helping them to learn. And it helps to maintain or establish interprofessional communication, especially when we work with multidisciplinary people, the way they talk, the way they communicate to us, especially when you are a student, okay, the way seniors treat you, the way the senior in charge or the ward sisters treat you. Okay, there may be little bit of difficulties here and there, at least with some people. But if you can reflect on that experiences, and if you can learn how to overcome that, your interpersonal relationship will definitely become professional. Okay, in the starting, it will be just a minimum, but day by day, you will become a highly professional person. So it's not a big thing to do reflection. As a beginning, we can tell our students to just reflect on how that particular shift went when they went to the clinicals today. Okay, from morning, say 7:30 till 1 o'clock, what went on in the shift. Okay, I'll tell you about that in the process. So what are the characteristics of reflective learning? It is a personal thing. Don't expect that. I should never expect that my students should reflect in the way I reflect. Okay, it is something very personal. It is something very emotional. Sometimes it is very sensitive. Okay, so it is usually an individual process. We look at both the success and the mistakes. All of us reflect in different ways. It leads to self-awareness. I've discussed about it. It requires effort, because just like that, when you say, okay, now you can do reflection, okay, like it's not a joke, you cannot sit here and then you sit in a group of 20 and then you say reflect, and then the student may not be very serious about it. Okay, so if you should know how to keep it individually. I'll just tell you about the tools what are available, how we can make our students to do this reflective learning. So it requires effort. They must be honest. Okay, see, when I write a reflective report, it is not to the purpose of reflective writing is not to convince my teacher that I am good. No, that is not the goal. Okay, the goal is when I do that reflective writing, I should be honest. I should say if I have done wrong, I should admit that I have done wrong. If I feel that, the patient was rude to me, I should write the patient was rude to me. It's not like satisfying something and then making everything, look appear like a sugar candy. That is not the purpose of reflective writing. We should be very honest. We should write what really went on well, what did not go on well, so that later on it will become constructive. It's not a judgmental process, but definitely it is a very sincere process which a student or even which a teacher can do, a reflective learning. But most of all, our students should never feel that it is boring. Okay, so when I say that word, it should not be boring. So which students will feel it as a boring method? Which students will not feel it as a boring method? Usually it is assumed that postgraduate students are at a higher level. Okay, graduate, especially a postgraduate student is considered to be at a very matured level and a higher level of education. So such students can be allowed to do this reflective practice. And there will be some students who are not up to the mark, like they will not have that capacity to intellectually, bring all these things together. So in such cases, we should not allow them to do. Okay, actually, they should feel happy by doing this reflective practice, and that should become a part of everyday life. Okay, where they can evaluate their own learning. Now, what are the models of reflective learning? There are various models available for reflective learning. So in this session, I'll be discussing mainly about this model, that is GIPS reflective cycle. Okay, it is actually a cycle, and there are 6 stages of reflection. So these are the 6 stages. Okay, the first one is description. The second stage is feeling. The third stage is evaluation. The fourth one is analysis. Fifth is conclusion. The last is action plan. Now, what is this? Description means it is you describe the incident, what has happened. Okay, you describe the incident, what happened in the clinical area. Feeling is, what did you feel at that time? When that incident happened, what did you feel at that time? Evaluation is, what went good in that scenario? What did not happen good in that scenario, or what went bad in that scenario? Analysis is, okay, now I know what is good and what is bad. Analysis is like, what else could have been the reason for such incident to have happened? What else would have been the reason? So conclusion is like, next time if it comes, what else can I do in order to overcome this scenario? An action plan is, next time when it comes, what I will do. That affirmatory sentence where you're going to say what I will do. Anju, can you please mute your audio, Anju? Okay, so now I will give you an example for GIPS reflective cycle. Okay, so the first one is like, I will tell one of my experience. Okay, like when I was a second year BSc nursing student, okay, I had to take a case study, okay, for medical surgical nursing. And I think it was my surgical nursing posting. And I was assigned to a patient who was having major, burns. Okay, this person had around 70% burns, more than 70% burns. And I was taking care of this patient from the beginning. Okay, so we know a burns patient means dressing has to be done and fluid management. So everything. Okay, I was continuously taking care of this patient. And then one day the doctor said that hereafter no need to give this bath in the bed. This patient can be taken for an assisted bath in the washroom or in the bathroom. Okay, so I wanted to take this patient on a wheelchair, and I want to, his wife also was ready to assist me, and both of us, okay, and along with the staff nurse. But the staff was busy that day, and so I was taking this patient for a assisted bath. And what happened is, when I told this patient that shall we go after all his morning routines were over, okay, when I was about to shift the patient, this patient started shouting at me like anything. Okay, it was not a simple rude remark. Okay, he was so angry, and then he shouted at me like, what to say, what the hell are you thinking? You people have your own routines, something. Okay, X, Y, Z, many things he shouted at me. And then what happened? I was, BSc student, second year. Okay, just entered into posting. I didn't reply anything back. Okay, I felt really sad, and but I was determined that I have to give bath for this patient. So I didn't want to. I tried to talk to him, but he was so rude, and he was using very rude words to put me down. So what happened is, I just left the room, but I was determined that I went to the staff nurse and I informed her that patient is not willing and I want her help. Then what happened? The staff came, and then she talked back to the patient. Okay, and then she told, there is no excuse if you don't want infection to happen. Okay, you have to maintain your. Then he was saying about pain and something, and she was also, a little bit affirmatively or assertively she said. And later on, the patient never told anything to her. The patient never used any rude words when he talked with the staff. Okay, but it happened to me. And then what happened? Ultimately, the last we took the patient, and he had a bath, and then from then on it went on. But this experience, was really hurting me, okay, because of that rude words. And then, okay, I didn't know that that is a reflective practice or reflective learning, or okay, but then I used to think certain incidents like this. And when I was thinking like, 1 week back, I had a small burns when I was trying to press my clothes, okay, in the hostel. And I know that how severe that pain was. And it was around, it took nearly 1 day for that pain to go away. It was such a burning sensation. We all know what is burns, minor burns. And then as I was thinking like, maybe, what to say, there are 2, 3 reasons, okay. 2, 3 reasons is maybe like, my patient is having such a severe pain. The whole body is burnt. And no wonder that he is so angry that he has to be taken for a assisted bath. Maybe he is having so much of pain and getting ambulated from the bed to the wheelchair and such things. Second thing is, why only he shouted to me and not to the staff? Maybe he knew that from day one I am giving care to him. Maybe he feels that he can be very, a little bit more open to me. He can express his emotions to me. Okay, but he cannot do that to a nurse who is on rotation and who is giving only, little bit of care there and here, because she has to handle so many patients. Okay, so when we look and when we reflect at and experience what is happening. Now I put this scenario here. Description is, first I will describe the incident, what I said to you about the patient. Feeling is, feeling is the feelings what I had. I felt hurt. Okay, I felt like retaliating back, etc., etc. Evaluation is what went good, what went wrong. What went good was, ultimately, anyway, he was, bath was given for the patient. Whether he wished or not, whether he shouted at me or not, the goal was attained. What went bad? Okay, maybe the rude remarks and analysis, what I said just now. Analysis, maybe these are the reasons why he shouted at me. Conclusion, what else could have been done? I also could have been a little bit more assertive. I also could have been a little bit more assertive, telling that no, this will not work. You will have to undergo the bath. Not showing any emotions in front of the patient. Okay, I never cried before him, but I felt silent. I kept silent. But what I thought I could have done is, I should have talked to him back. I should have told him that irrespective of your things, I am not affected by your comments. I'll have to take you for a bath. Okay, action plan is, next time if I happen to meet a patient who is talking to me rudely like this, I know how to handle this patient. Okay, so that is how we have to do reflective learning. So describe, express your feelings, analyze what went right, analyze what went wrong, analyze what may be the other things which had ended up with such an incident. Conclusion, what else could have been done? An action plan next time when it comes, how to handle it. If you do this, You in a right way, you will be able to develop. Otherwise, what will happen if you're not going to do reflection? If somebody shouts at you, you will also shout back. Or if somebody shouts at you, you avoid that patient. I don't think that is a proper way we should do in nursing practice. We should learn how to overcome that. And for sure, reflective practice and reflective learning will help our students to overcome this sort of incidents. Now, other than this GIPS method, we have many other methods, okay, which I'm not going into detail, like Henderson, Knapp, and Monteiro. They all have given a 5-point rating scale: reporting, responding, relating, reasoning, reconstructing. All looks the same, okay? You describe it, you respond to it, try to relate, reason it out, and then reconstruct the experience again. Now, for our students, what can be the format for reflection? We can allow them to do reflection individually, alone. Ask them to do it as a work at home and ask them to bring it back the next day. We can make them to reflect in groups. Yes, we can make it in groups. Even as teacher can participate in a group reflection. Especially, after this webinar, maybe the organizing teachers and the students together. We can sit together and we can reflect, okay, how things went on. That is facilitated group or even a combination of both, okay? But very essential thing is we need a teacher. We need a teacher who is very skilled, who is independent, and the most important among the 3 points which I put there, I would like to take this one: a non-threatening setting. When a student writes something in a reflective report, we teachers should never judge them. You should never underestimate them. Don't give a threatening atmosphere. Be very neutral. Let them write what they want to. Let them try to express their opinion, what they want to. Okay, and then we can guide them slowly how they can help in their reflective practice. Next is applications. What are the various ways? One way is we can sit and we can think together and we can reflect. Number 2 is this one, reflective report. Ask them to write. I think that is the best method we can use for our students. Ask them to write a reflective report. Starting point should be the incident. Okay, doesn't have to be a dramatic event like what I shared with you. Okay, that was just for an example which I shared. Even if everything goes on well, I can reflect on what happened during the day's shift, okay, or during the night shift, what went on. The reflection of the students can be written. And whenever we write, when we tell students to do a reflective writing, the subject matter will be determined by the student. In all the other assignments, the teacher will give the topic. In case of reflective writing, the student will select the topic for, reflective learning. Subject matter may be personal. Definitely it will be personal. Okay, it is not going to be a professional. I cannot say write a written assignment on trends and issues in medical surgical nursing. That is not a topic for reflective learning. It is a subject matter which can be personal. There is not necessarily a clear structure. Now our students may ask, Madam, how should I write this reflective learning? Introduction, methodology, conclusion, should I write like that? Okay, there is no clear structure. You can just write how you want. Describe the incident, describe the analysis, and write the evaluation. Okay, next is, so there is no clear structure. The writing style is subject using the first person. What is first person? I will write I. When I went to the clinicals, when I met the patient, I will use the word I. That is the first person. And there may be a conclusion of what something which has been learned. What do you mean by that? Ultimately, the student will try to write in the conclusion what he or she has learned. Okay. I'm sorry to call the name, but so that it will not disturb the other participants. Sajita is here. Sajita, can you please mute your audio? Sajita, thank you. Okay, now reflective writing, we always should edit your writing. See, when you submit your reflective report to your teacher, please make sure that it is not running in pages and pages, okay? Because you should not write your philosophy and story completely in a reflective report. It should be brief, it should be concise as possible. Now, this is one example of a report which I had taken from the website, okay? Actually, the name of the author here is, it is taken from the Study Skills Handbook from UK. Okay, so sample report is, actually I will tell you what is this incident about. The students were asked to present a seminar. It was a group seminar and the students did not prepare very well. the students did not prepare well for the seminar, and they did the seminar and something all went wrong. Certain things went wrong, and ultimately they are writing a reflective report. They are writing a reflective report. So I will just read out the keywords what the student has written in the reflective report. Firstly, our group dynamics were problematic. Group dynamics were problematic because the second line, no one wanted to lead the group. Okay, like there are say 5-6 group members are there. Nobody wants to take up the leadership position in that particular group. Okay, so sometimes some groups comes like that where nobody wants to be the leader, and there are certain groups where everybody wants to be the leader. Okay, so that problem was in group dynamics. Second thing was none of us really did as much reading and preparation as we should have. So they did not prepare. Okay, then we did not focus on that. Like the teacher has told us that the seminar will be given most of the credit for the content, but we never focused on the content. Okay, why? Because arguing about who would do what, which meant we didn't have enough time for proper preparation, and we didn't rehearse the presentation. So what happened, since they never rehearsed the presentation, it went out of time. And then last, the student has written, if we do another presentation, I will definitely rehearse. This is a reflective report. What did not, actually this report is focusing more on what did not go well. You can write what went well, what did not go well, and say the last word, last sentence, that is the conclusion. Next time, if we do another presentation, I will definitely rehearse. So if you are wondering what questions to give to provoke reflection, you can give anything in the classroom learning. After taking a class, say for example on estimating sample size, okay, or on power analysis, okay, or on say some very tough topic, you can tell the students to do a reflective learning. Okay, critical incident in clinical practice. Okay, we have had examples from the clinical area. Maybe on something like what should be an ideal nursing student? Who will be an ideal nurse? You can include anything and everything in reflective report. Okay, it can be related to your skill in giving an injection. It can be starting an IV cannula, interaction, communication, patient, family, caregiver, anything. Okay, they can reflect on any topic which they want to reflect. What are the benefits? We learn from experience. We learn from experience. All of us have experience, but here we learn from experience. We develop metacognitive skills. You know what is metacognitive skills? The way we are trying to think how I think. I am trying to think how I think. Okay, in the sense like I am trying to learn how I learn. Okay, in the sense sometimes we say no meta theory. Meta theory is a theory about a theory. Same way metacognitive skills. Okay, and then you give the responsibility to the students. We understand how we learn. I will know what is my strength and weakness. I know how to learn from mistakes. Especially in a nursing profession, it will improve the professional motivation. Definitely our nurses will be having a humanistic nursing. Humanistic nursing means, I'll explain that in the conclusion. Okay, limitation. But the limitation of this reflective learning is, as I told you, in undergraduate students. For some students who are not capable to think out and then to reason out, don't trouble them. Don't make it as a burden. This reflective learning. It should be a joyful learning. It should be an innovative learning method. Okay, so if they're having less abilities, don't pull them for reflective learning. So before I conclude on reflective learning, have you all heard about something called as data to wisdom transformation? Data is a piece of information is data. When you are arranging it properly, it becomes an information. When you are going to analyze it and when you are going to take something, synthesize out of it, you call that as knowledge. But when you're going to have a rich experience of gaining knowledge, using that knowledge in a proper way, you are considered to be a wise person. Okay, so reflective learning will not only make you knowledgeable, it will take you one step ahead in a pedestal. You will become a person with wisdom because you really reflect on each and every matter which happens in your life. So what is the takeaway message for reflective learning? Nurse educators, we should model reflective practice. We always tell our students, behave professionally, have emotional maturity, don't cry in front of the patient, ask them to do reflective learning. We always give advice, have emotional maturity, teach them how to have emotional maturity, tell them to do reflection, tell them where what went wrong. Okay, tell them to think which statement, what the patient said, which statement I ended up with tears. What happened? Till then I was stable, but the patient or that particular teacher gave me one particular sentence or a remark which made me to cry. What was that? Think about it. Okay, that is what you do in reflective learning. Think about it. Next time, think why that patient or why that sister in charge or why that nurse administrator shouted like that. Think about it and try to learn from it so that our students will learn how to become emotionally mature. No need of advice how to talk professionally. You have to just help them, guide them in certain areas, ask them to write a reflective report. Definitely, it will come out very well. So, conclusion about reflective learning. I have not completed my topic. PBL is there. For reflective learning, is it should be included in the curriculum. When I went through postgraduate syllabus to look whether reflective learning is there in the MSc nursing syllabus in our state, it is found that it is not there. Okay, but I strongly feel that it should be included in the curriculum and a reflective report should be submitted by the student, which will help them in a long run. But last point, don't abuse self-reflectiveness. For each and everything, don't say learn from the clinical area, do reflection and come out of it. No, no, it should not be like that. Let us not abuse it, but let us use wherever it is necessary. So this is what I want to convey. Whenever we are a person who is doing reflection, our relationships, the way we carry ourselves, the way we interact with other people, the way you show your assertiveness, everything will have a difference. The same thing, if you can use it in nursing practice, this one, providing a way. Those who wish to commit themselves to others, we have to re-examine ourselves. When we keep on re-examining us, what will happen? See there, you can escape being impulsive. You can escape being judgmental about situations, colleagues, and patients, and you will learn how to behave professionally. If you really want to be a very good nurse, if you really want to be a very good student, you can do this reflective learning once in a while at least, to keep reflecting and then to learn from that situation. I hope I have made some justice to that topic, reflective learning. Okay, now we'll go on to the second topic. It is a very motivating topic. It is a very, challenging topic, problem-based learning. Okay, problem-based learning, in this one slide itself, that it is not one individual working. It is a team of people who are working. It is a group of people who are working. So problem-based learning means there is a group of students who are going to come together and they are going to solve the problem and thereby they are going to learn it. So again, I am taking on the words of John Dewey. True learning is based on discovery of knowledge rather than transmission of knowledge. In this session, I will talk only like this because it is innovative teaching method. Innovative is not transferring knowledge from one person to another person. John Dewey believes that the children have to discover. The students have to discover. See, when you discover a shell in a seashore like this, especially when you were very small, okay, when you were trying to discover some shells from the seashore, how happy you felt. You run and you say, I got it, I got it. That happiness should be there when you learn. Trying to discover a problem, trying to discover how to solve the problem. That will end up with accomplishment and that memory will be there for a long period of time. That is problem-based learning. So problem-based learning is again a student-centered learning strategy. As I told you before, students collectively come together, they solve their problems and they reflect on their experience. So what is a starting problem? Starting point is a problem. You should begin with the problem and then you continue with problem-based learning. So how does traditional method differ from a problem-based learning? Traditional method emphasizes on memorization. We tell our students, study well, when you get this question, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all these are the key points. Okay, all these are the keywords. When I teach, I usually tell that. Okay, like for example, when I teach a condition, I say, you can forget anything you want, but X, Y, Z keywords you should remember. Okay, because it's like you have to memorize certain things. But problem-based learning is very different. Problem-based learning is, these people, they believe that, these philosophers believe that it is not in memorization. It is a process of learning. It is a process of learning how you are. For example, I think always our dissertation, MSc Nursing second year dissertation is actually, this type of a problem-based learning where you do it individually. That is, you select a problem, and by the time you complete your second year MSc nursing, you are thorough with what is research. You are thorough with how a dissertation process should go on, how to guide another student. That confidence you get, that process, how you are learning is more important in PBL. Okay, especially in PBL, we give importance to real life problems. So what are the goals of problem-based learning? To make sure that students learn to take decisions independently. What happens here? We usually try to feed the student, spoon feeding the student. Okay, like we give whatever we have in our beak to the beak of the students. Okay, so what happens is that independent learning is not there. PBL is not like that. It helps the students to take decisions independently. Number two, it helps to activate the prior knowledge. I will tell you how prior knowledge is activated when I discuss the process. Okay, and more memory will be there. Definitely, I know I have not forgotten how I have carried out the dissertation during my PG period. Okay, because I have gone through it. It is not one class session. The process of memory retention will be more. It develops self-direction, lifelong learning skills. Okay, which means you become independent. There is a self-directed learning. You become a very efficient collaborator. You know why? It is a group work. When it is a group work, you learn how to respect the opinions of others. You become a very good collaborator with the group. It helps to increase the intrinsic motivation of the student because it is a discovery. I have to solve the problem. Okay, the teacher will not help me. The teacher will not solve the problem. So internal motivation. Effective clinical reasoning process. Okay, because when many people are giving so many points, even I will start to think, how come that person is able to tell like all these things? How come, yeah, that is also right. What she is telling is also right. Reasoning process will improve. And then it helps to maintain the personal characteristics and the attitude. Coming on to characteristics of PBL, as I have already shared, it is student-centered, small groups. Okay, 6 to 8 people can be in one group when you go for a PBL. Teachers will be there. Okay, teachers will be only a guide. Teachers will be only a facilitator. They will not take class. Problem is the organizing focus and problem is the stimulus for learning. Then it shifts away from short, isolated, teacher-centered lesson. Okay, it is not one single way you make them to sit and teach. Shift is away from that teacher-centered lesson, presenting a real-world situation. There is a group work and group discussion, and it is self-directed learning. What are the principles of PBL? See, these are the principles based on which PBL is working. Okay, these people, they believe that understanding comes from our interaction with the environment. They don't believe understanding comes from an efficient teacher. PBL does not believe understanding comes from the effective class taken by a teacher or a knowledgeable teacher. No, no, no. Understanding comes from interaction with the environment, interaction with the group, interaction with the teacher. Cognitive conflict stimulates learning. What is cognitive conflict? Brainstorming. Brainstorming. Okay, you tell one thing. See, in this picture, one person is telling one thing, the other person is telling something else. You have a brainstorming session and then you come up with a solution. Knowledge evolves through social negotiation. These are modern ways of teaching and learning. Okay, so they believe that knowledge is coming from social negotiation. One, as I told you before, okay, it comes from the group dynamics and it is based on what we experience. Okay, and meaning is created from efforts to answer our own questions. You are given the responsibility to solve the problem. Okay, your group is given the responsibility, so you have to take efforts, and thereby your critical thinking and reasoning skills will be developed. But believe us, when we give PBL, it is not that teachers don't like students. Students are the focus. It is a student-centered teaching learning strategy. Now the role is changing. When I organize a PBL session, if you are a good teacher, you can sit back, relax, and see how the group is going on. The teacher will no more be an active person. The teacher will be a little bit passive, but the student is going to be a very active person. Okay, then they will also have that credit for accomplishment. Now we are going to see the steps of PBL, how to do a PBL. Okay, and I will also give you an example. Okay, first thing is present the problem. As a teacher, I will give you a scenario. Number two, what you are going to do. Students, they're sitting in groups. Okay, students will define what is the problem and they will start brainstorming based on their prior knowledge. Okay, so they are sitting in groups. I have given them a problem. Now these students will start to discuss regarding the problem. They'll start to brainstorm. Then students will try to understand what they know and what they don't know. Okay, certain things I know as a student, certain things we don't know as a group, none of us know. So what we will do, the next step, the third one, students will engage in independent study. Okay, say for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we don't know what is that. One will be given to one group member, two will be given to another group member. Each of us will split, each of us go separately. We are going to do an independent study. After that, what will happen? We will come back. Student will come back. They will share the information. They will do a peer group teaching, which means within the group, one will come and tell what she understood. Two will come and say what she understood. All of us come back. We share each other. There is a peer group teaching. What is the next thing? Students present their solution. Now everybody have done their work. Everybody have come back. Now we are going to present our solution. Okay, and we are going to give it back to the teacher. So the student is engaging in self-review, peer group review, coach review. I'll tell you what is that. Now let us take an example. This is a scenario. Miss X. Okay, so the first scenario, the first paragraph can be given for one session of PBL. Say Miss X, it's a medical surgical topic. Okay, and so maybe we can give it to some second year or third year BSc nursing students, okay, especially for a second year student. Miss X, a 25-year-old female, was dusting and cleaning her home. Okay, when she experienced a difficulty in breathing. Her friend helped her inside the house, but Miss X looked very flushed. She continued to have great difficulty in breathing. Her friend phoned for an ambulance. She was taken to the emergency department in a nearby hospital. This is the scenario. Now, what will my students do? They'll think like, why this lady ended up with breathing difficulty? Why when she was dusting and cleaning? Okay. What was that, that pathogenesis? What happened so much that she looked very flushed? And she was taken immediately to an emergency department to a hospital. So maybe the students will sit together. They'll say that dust is there, pollen may be there. Maybe she's allergic to dust. Maybe she's taking some medicines which are, making her to be allergic to that particular dust. So certain things they know, but they don't know why that lady flushed up and why it became an emergency. They are not aware. So they can split it into groups. They can go back, they can study, and then they can come together. Second session. Her observation, see there, BP is 130/80. Partial pressure of oxygen is 81. PSCO2 is increased 51. The student does not know why this blood pressure is, why the ABG analysis is, everything is changed. There is hypoxemia, there is hypercapnia, there is tachypnea. Students go back, they study, they come back. So this is how we give a scenario and we help the student to do it PBL. So when we finish with the PBL, evaluation can be done. Group evaluation can be taken. Individual students evaluation can be taken. Content evaluation can be taken. The teacher should make sure that whatever they are presenting is somewhat right. Okay. We cannot leave it to whatever they tell. Content, and last, the teacher will be giving her evaluation. Who are the members? If you are having a PBL, if you are planning to do a PBL, there should be a group with a group leader. There should be somebody called as a scribe. I'll tell you who is that. Number 3, group members should be there. Tutor should be there. So out of 6 students, 1 will be the group leader, 1 will be the scribe, 4 will be the group members, all are group members, and then there is a tutor. What is the responsibility? The group leader will be leading the group. Make sure that everybody is participating. You and me, we know. When we come in a group, only people who are dominating will be speaking. There will be students who are very passive. So it is a responsibility of the group leader to make sure that group dynamics is maintained. Make sure that the time is kept up and the scribe is recording. Who is a scribe? As the picture shows, scribe is the person who is recording what everybody is telling. She will record all the points and she will also participate in discussion, but she will record all the points given by the group member. What is the role of a group member? What is the role of a group member? Group member should follow the ethics of participating in a group, should participate in discussion, respect the contribution of others, can have asked questions, and they should go back and each member should do a research on their independent learning objective and they should come back and share the information. What is the responsibility of a tutor? Tutor will look into every aspect. She should help the group leader with group dynamics. She should help the scribe to maintain accurate record. She should make sure that the students are not talking any other stories and deviating, prevent sidetracking, make sure that the objectives is achieved and understanding and performance is there. Advantages, a lot of advantages. Students learn to think critically. They learn to apply the knowledge. They are no more dependent students. They know how to solve a particular problem, self-directed, flexible knowledge, lifelong learning skill. Any problem comes, they know how to analyze it, how to come out of it. Group behavior. In fact, they will have very good friendship within the group. They'll help each other in the group. It is a fun-filled, joy-filled activity is PBL. There is more motivation for learning. Students are no more passive. They become an active people. In spite of all these things, there are certain disadvantages. What are they? You cannot think of using a PBL when you have a large size classroom. Okay, large size, like for example, 100 students in a class. It is little bit challenging on how to do a PBL. It requires orientation. Students are not aware of how to do a PBL. You have to teach them what is PBL, what is the process of PBL, how to evaluate it from one group to another group. It may be difficult. Okay, and they do not really understand how to proceed in certain people. In spite of explaining, they don't really understand how PBL works. So these are the disadvantages. So with that, I have completed the topic. So as a conclusion, I would like to say that all of us as teachers, all of us even as students, we always feel that traditional teaching is very good. Just like this yellow ladder, we always feel that only traditional teaching will help us to attain the goal. Okay, that is, a teacher should take a class. The teacher should tell us everything. Yes, definitely that is having a great contribution. Okay, but we also should give some space for innovative teaching methods. See, conducting PBL is not so practical when we have a very tight syllabus and when we have so many portions to cover. But at least one topic in a year can be thought of being conducted using a problem-based learning. Because along with the yellow ladder, we also find that a white ladder is also helping to reach the cloud. So let us learn to be more innovative, try to implement whatever is possible. All innovative methods may be difficult for a curriculum like us in India, but still, okay, as far as possible, one or two there and here, if you implement, the students will remember you for a lifelong time, because you would have given them an experience of happiness, an experience of great understanding, and not just memorizing and writing the exam. So I would like to especially thank each and every one of you, for your patient listening. So even before I conclude, I would like to say that I place my sincere and heartfelt thanks to Lord Almighty for giving me good health and for giving me the blessing to participate in this webinar session. Next, I would like to thank my respected principal, Professor Sister Shalini, Principal, Samaritan College of Nursing, who has given me an opportunity and consented, okay, for my willingness to join this webinar. And most importantly, thanking all the organizers, as I mentioned before, especially Principal Pushpagiri College of Nursing, Sister Teres, and Soni Madam for contacting me, for keeping me updated with all communications so that I was not lost anywhere. And last but not the least, heartfelt thanks to all the dear students and all the dear delegates for your patient listening. So thank you very much. I'm stopping my slide share. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take up.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an informative session, Rohini ma'am.
Yes, Soni ma'am.
I hope all those who are listening will be practicing these methods. They will be starting. So we have a few questions, ma'am. We have a question from Jennifer Deborah from Salem. Is reflective report always out of own experience? Rohini ma'am?
Yeah, I'll answer that. Majority, most of the time, it is very good to have it from a personal experience, because when I start to reflect on a particular situation, I have also read before, like what Jennifer has asked, it's very right, because there are two ways of having a reflective learning, but most often it really, it helps to gain a lot. Students gain a lot, especially when they are facilitated to learn from a personal experience. But as she has correctly pointed out, even when I share my experience to another person, the other people can reflect on what went on. That is also possible. But here in reflective learning as an innovative teaching learning method, it refers to personal experience. Ms. Jennifer, I hope it is clear.
Ms. Jennifer?
Very clear. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So we have another question from Jodisa Rose. What are the benefits of reflective learning?
Yeah, I think I've covered that in my PowerPoint. I think definitely, you become a very great, it's not, though you're not a very great individual, you will definitely become a very compassionate, you will become a wonderful nurse if you're going to do a reflective practice. You will be a wonderful friend to others if you are practicing a reflective practice, because you try to learn from your experience and you know what exactly is going on. Okay, you know where you went wrong, you know where others went wrong, and definitely you become a very you will be a nurse who can give humanistic or a comprehensive care to your patients. Yeah, that's my answer. I think other points I have put it up in the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Hope Jodisa Rose, ma'am, is it clear? Okay.
Ma'am, I would like to ask a question.
Yes.
I am Sister Margaret calling from St. Martha's College of Nursing, Bangalore.
Yes, sister.
Yes.
Ma'am, your reflective journal about and problem-based learning was very good, ma'am. It was excellent. But I still have one doubt.
Yes, sister.
That in Gibbs reflective cycle, you have said evaluation, we talk about the pros and cons.
Yes.
But in analysis as well, we are talking about what happened. So what is the difference that we can make?
Okay. Sister, in the third step, actually, what we are doing is we are looking into what went right. I think somebody has switched on the audio. Sharat Kumar.
Kindly mute Sharat Kumar AS. Can you kindly mute? Do you have any questions?
Okay, sister, I think I'm audible. Okay, in the third step, in the third step, what we are doing is what went right, what went wrong. That is what we are doing. In the fourth step, what we are doing is we are thinking like what else would have been the reason for that incident to have happened like that. Sister, like in the example I shared you, in the example which I shared, like what went right was I was able to give, I achieved my goal. What went wrong was maybe I was a little bit upset with the incident. But the next step, that is in the fourth step, what I will do is what else would have been the reason for that particular incident to have happened. That is when I'm thinking like, maybe my patient with burns is having very severe pain. Maybe my patient is not, maybe my patient is having that freeness to express his feelings towards me. Sister, did you get that point?
Yes, ma'am.
So that is the difference, sister. That is the difference. Third is right and wrong. Fourth is what else would have been the reason? What other would have been the reason for that incident?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, sister. Okay.
Ma'am, we have one more question from Sister Serena. Is there any particular criteria to select the topics for reflective learning?
Okay, Sister Serena, actually, there is no, I have covered this in my slide. I'll just repeat it. You can tell your students before that, Mr. Sharat Kumar. Mr. Sharat Kumar, can you please mute your audio?
Mr. Sharat Kumar.
Sir, you can
unmute everyone.
Okay, okay.
Kumar?
Yeah, okay. So, just a thought block. Sister, madam, can you please repeat that question if you don't mind?
Sure, ma'am. Is there any particular criteria to select the topics for reflective learning?
Okay. So there is no specific criteria. There is no specific criteria. You can ask your student to reflect on how the clinical shift went on. You can ask her to reflect on how she is very good, how much her communication ability is with her patients. You can ask her to reflect on, how she maintains her relationship with the nursing supervisors, with her nursing teachers, with her own classmates. So actually, there is no specific topic which you say, it's not like a written assignment topic. Okay, you can ask them to reflect on whatever they feel like reflecting within the profession of nursing. They should not go anywhere else within the profession of nursing. So that is my answer.
Sister Serena, your doubt is clear? Sister Serena?
I just no, ma'am. I just would like to get some more clarification. Like, is it possible for us to take some topic from our syllabus or curriculum? Can we use it as a method of reflective learning?
Ma'am, Rohini?
I
Rohini,
didn't
ma'am?
get the question, madam. I didn't get the question.
Yeah, it's Sister Serena. I think it's not clear. Can you ask once again?
I'm Sister Serena. Just I would like to get some more clarification from the topic which you have discussed. Like, is it possible for us to select any topic from our syllabus method of reflective learning?
Okay. I think that I will answer that, sister. I'll definitely answer that. I think yeah. Okay, I think now I can answer. Sister from the syllabus as such, we cannot tell them to read reflect on particular thing. Maybe you can take a class and then you can ask your students to reflect on the experience of that class. It is not an academic way of studying something. That is not reflective learning. Reflective learning is where we learn from the experience. So maybe after my class, I can ask my students to reflect on the class, how it went on. I can ask my students to reflect on the clinical area where she is working. Interpersonal skills like that, sister. Definitely, I cannot give a topic from a medical surgical nursing, acute respiratory failure. Do a reflective learning and come back. That is not possible. I can take a class on acute respiratory failure. I can tell my students to reflect on what she thought, what she feels went on well in the class, what did not go well in the class, such things. Okay, so it is a topic where the students are going to write a report based on their experience. Sister, have I made that point clear? Is it clear now?
Yes, ma'am. This is what I wanted. Yes.
Okay,
yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, sister.
Hello, madam.
Yes.
I'm Sister Therese.
Yes, sister.
I have one more question. Like,
sister.
you said it is after the class or something. After that, we have to reflect. Is it
Yes,
possible or before the class, whether, if I am teaching geriatric nursing,
yes.
I am telling my students, you
Yes.
can reflect on your own grandmother or grandfather. Is
Yes.
it the same method which we are using or anything else?
Yes, sister. Yes, sister. Like the students should have had an experience with grandparents. If students have an experience, they can go for a reflective learning, because reflective learning very specifically spells out that word, that they should have had an experience. If students have experience with grandparents, definitely we can make it even before the class, because they have an experience, we can ask them to write.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sister.
Delegates, any other doubts? Now you can fill the feedback. There was some issues, but now it's not there. So those who had issues, kindly fill the feedback form once again. Which is sent now. So I think as all the doubts are cleared, Rohini ma'am,
Okay.
our chat box is full of positive comments for you.
Thanks to God, madam, because you know.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, I know it was a very difficult situation, but God had helped you to present it, and lot very informative session, and I hope it will be useful for both the students and the faculty to use these two methods. We already know about it, but still ma'am has thrown more light about both these methods. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Soni ma'am. Thank you so much for that, for this rich experience. Thank you.
So over to Asha.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable information. Now I invite Ms. Anne Ralan to deliver a vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to one and all. It gives me an immense pleasure to deliver vote of thanks to all dignitaries assembled here. First of all, I would like to thank Lord